Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer. And I help you to crack the code of your sleep and dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening's offerings are three short dreams, but we know that short dreams have lots of information. And the features of these three dreams include martyr complexes, naughty snacks, and dancing. So we'll just jump right in and see what's going on with these three dreams. Dream number one, the dreamer reports that it was in church, and it was a dramatization of the Easter story um, that was taking place during the service, and the dreamer played the role of Jesus. So at the point where in the story that Jesus is stripped and whipped by the Romans, the dreamer himself in the dream was actually stripped and whipped. It ends the first dream. Dream number two, the dreamer was apparently had found the dreamer's wife had apparently found some empty wrappers for ginger biscuits, and that the dreamer had bought, and demanded to know were they if they were like wanted to find out what was he doing with these cookies or biscuits, and why did he have them, as if the empty wrappers were evidence of some kind of illegal act or illicit act. And that's the end of the second dream. Dream number three, the dreamer reports being at a dance and up on stage dancing with his wife and sister-in-law. And well, naturally being on stage, everybody would be looking at you because everybody can see you. And that's the end of the third dream. Now, there's a lot. The ties between these three dreams aren't immediately visible, but let's go through them and see what it is that ties them together. First of all, when we look at the first dream, the dreamer puts himself, or is placed in the dream, in the role of Christ at this event at church. Now, the dreamer states that during the part of this performance where Jesus is stripped and whipped, that this was actually enacted upon the dreamer himself during the course of this service at church. And the first thing that comes to mind is that something of a martyr complex. So taking on, the dreamer perhaps feels that in some ways taking on the sins of the world, and dying for other people. But I would ask the dreamer, what does that feel like, or what does that evoke for the dreamer, being Jesus and a martyr in the end, for what he believed in or what he was teaching, and what does that bring up for the dreamer? The other question that comes up for me here is that where, perhaps in the dreamer's life, does he feel like he's being martyred or crucified? There's something about punishment that comes through here, or taking on punishment, maybe undeserved, but punishment nonetheless. And I wonder what that means or brings up for the dreamer. Another question that comes to me with this is, has there been any incident in the waking life of the dreamer having an experience like this, of being kind of stripped and beaten and humiliated, whether it was justified or not? And how does that make the dreamer feel when the memory like that comes up? What comes up with it? Now, here I call it the naughty cookie caper in the second dream. Now, the cookie wrappers, or biscuit wrappers, that the dreamer's wife found, the empty wrappers, were for ginger cookies, which are spicy. So a little bit of spice there, versus perhaps other types of cookies or biscuits, which may be more bland. And several questions popped up with this one, including something about perhaps needing the need to add some spice to the dreamer's life in some way, in waking life. And what do ginger cookies in general evoke or represent for the dreamer? Again, I asked the question: is there a lack of spice somehow? Because the cookies aren't actually present, just the empty wrappers. But there's also that, remember that dreams will speak in metaphors, as if. And I just wonder if those empty wrappers is in some strange way represent condoms, empty wrappers. And as so, in a sense, it's a coded language. I just put that out there because it occurred to me. But there's why would a wife accuse her spouse of eating cookies? There's just, it doesn't quite jive there. So there's something about what those cookies actually represent that's at question here. What do these cookies represent or acting as a substitute for? And an idea that came to me later, after I read this and had put it down, is the slang expression "pop your cookies." So, and there's no doubt about what that's about. So, and I just wonder if cookies and spice and things being spiced up have something to do with sex, having an orgasm. Who knows? But I put that out there. Now, moving on to the third dream, the dreamer is at a dance with his wife and sister-in-law, and the three of them are dancing on stage. And my first question is, apart from themselves, what do these two women represent for the dreamer? Because as I keep saying, the people who are in our dreams are not necessarily themselves. Sometimes they can be, but quite often it's more about them being an aspect of ourselves. So what aspects of these two women corresponds to something within the dreamer? I also ask is if at least one of them, perhaps the sister-in-law, is the anima or inner feminine that each man carries within him, as do women carry the an inner male within them. Now, the three of them, this little menage a trois, so to speak, is on stage where everyone can see them. So they're on show. And this is a public performance versus perhaps one in private. And I wonder what that evokes for the dreamer, about being on display, as it were, with everybody's eyes on you, and dancing on stage with these two women. So when you said everybody was looking at them, were they looking at the three people in admiration and disgust and amusement? How did it feel to the dreamer to have all of these people staring at them while they were dancing? Now, this dancing with two women, I mean, we all do that have gone to dances, at least we used to, not these days, where, groups of us are kind of dancing together, not necessarily with each other, but as a group. But what does this mean for the dreamer? There's a wife and then a woman, not his wife, so to speak, even though it's his sister-in-law, but a woman who is not his wife. Is this other woman, a sister-in-law, a stand-in or a substitute somehow for the wife? I put that out there to the dreamer. And also whether in waking life there is a situation where the dreamer may be kind of dividing his attention, as it were, between two different loyalties rather than necessarily two different people. So something for the dreamer to consider. Now, what links three apparently very different dreams? I think for me, what came up was about visibility versus being invisible. Now, for example, in the first dream, Jesus is publicly stripped and whipped. So, very much on display for everyone to see. And 2,000 years later, we're still talking about it. So, very, very visible. There's also possible visible evidence of an affair, implied anyway, by these empty wrappers. But the actual act, if there was one, is hidden. So it's invisible. And then again, we go back to being highly visible with dancing on stage, but with two women. So, there's no way to hide. Everybody can see you because you're up on stage and highlighted, got strobe lights and all the rest of it. So extremely visible and public. So there seems to be some kind of uh, contradiction or struggle in a way between being visible and public and then being private and hidden in some way. And I would put to the dreamer that, is there any part or aspect of their life that is like that there's the public persona, which we all have our public masks that we wear, but is there somewhere where the dreamer doesn't feel that he is able to show his true face, or that there may be needs some areas of his life that need spicing up, but that's being kept under wraps for whatever reason. So there's some things there for the dreamer to look at and consider with regard to being visible as opposed to not. So there you have it. I said all our naughty cookies and martyrdom and dancing on stage. It reminds me a little bit of Bruce Springsteen's hit from some years ago called Dancing in the Dark. He was always inviting a girl up from the audience to come up on stage and dance with him. And as it happens, the young woman who actually did that video with him became famous for being famous, so to speak, for getting up on stage and dancing. So there's something about perhaps maybe an attachment to wanting fame and recognition also for the dreamer to consider. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a fantastic evening and rest of the week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.